A young boy heads out to deliver his newspapers one morning in 1982 with a group of other kids. Moments later, one of the boys disappears, and a milk carton kid and one of the most high-profile missing person cases on record is born. My name is M. William Phelps. I'm an investigative journalist and the true crime author of close to 50 books. I've dedicated the past 26 years of my life to helping families of the missing and murdered. Join me next for this Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps shortcut. I don't think the job exists any longer, but delivering newspapers was something you did before you were old enough to get a, quote, real job at 16. The papers were dropped off at a spot near your house. You counted your stack, folded, and put them in one of those canvas newspaper sacks Dennis the Menace used, slung it over your shoulder, hopped on your bike, and went on your way. On Thursdays or Fridays, you took out your collection book with the big metal rings and vanilla-colored tickets and knocked on every door you delivered to. When they paid, you tore off the little ticket for a receipt. Of course, it was always that family you had to chase down. They were never home. I remember seeing the car coming down the road, get on my bike, hustle down there, and they'd ditch me. Delivering newspapers was a rite of passage. I recall maybe making $15 to $30 a week with tips. This after getting up early and pedaling your ass off up hills and through snow. But that was the job. You did it until you couldn't stand it anymore, and then you passed the route to the next neighborhood kid in line. Now, the day of the week you dreaded the most was Sunday. That freaking Sunday newspaper with all the supplements was 3 times as thick as the weekly, and heavy as a bag of sand. On Sunday, September 5th, 1982, in a quiet, suburban-friendly neighborhood in West Des Moines, Iowa, 12-year-old Johnny Gosch is up before dawn, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, dragging himself down to the location near his house where the bulk delivery driver dropped off the papers for all the kids in Johnny's neighborhood. Generally, Johnny would get his father up and his dad would help him. On this day, however, Johnny decides instead to take the family dog, Gretchen. As he gathers his papers at the newspaper drop, the other boys begin arriving. Johnny is checking his delivery, counting the papers to see if he has been shorted, which really sucked. When a reported blue, two-toned car drives up slowly and stops near him. Johnny and what has been described as a stocky man begin talking. Several of the other boys later report seeing the two of them having a conversation. I thought something was strange, one of the boys later says, referring to how he felt about the driver. When Johnny finishes talking to the man and the man drives off, one of the other boys goes up to Johnny and asks what the guy wanted. He asked for my help with directions, Johnny says. Each boy gets his papers. Johnny loads his in a red radial flyer wagon with the wooden sides, and he takes off with his dog up the street. Johnny's route started about a block north of where they were all gathering. Johnny has this boyish look to him, so prevalent back in the early 80s. Blondish, almost brown hair, cut just below his neck, very straight, parted distinctly on one side, feathered across his forehead over to the other. He has blue eyes, he's about 5 feet, 5 inches tall, very slim eyebrows, almost pencil marks. a noticeable gap between his two front teeth, a birthmark on his left cheek, and, oddly, a horseshoe scar on his tongue. On this day, Johnny is wearing a white sweatshirt with the words Kim's Academy on the back, sweatpants, and blue rubber flip-flops. As Johnny heads north, his red radio flyer trailing behind him, now full of those heavy Sunday newspapers. One of the boys later says he looks towards where Johnny is headed and claims he sees a man, a second man, on foot following Johnny. Thinking it's strange, the other boy carries on with his route in the opposite direction, likely scared, scurrying away. As the morning carries on, Johnny's mother and father, John and Noreen, are bombarded with phone calls. Where is my newspaper? That's the tone of each call. It seems that no one along Johnny's route had gotten their newspaper. And look, deprive a family of their Sunday newspaper in the 80s, and all hell will break loose in that household. Been there. Johnny's dad heads out in the family car in search of his son. It's somewhere near 6 a.m. now. 2 blocks from the family home, John sees his son's red radio flyer wagon, and it's loaded to the top with newspapers. Johnny hadn't delivered any of them. And now, Johnny is nowhere to be found. This is a time when stranger danger and abduction was a major fear weaving through the fabric of America. It's 1 year after Adam Walsh, America's Most Wanted founder and the well-known face of child abduction advocacy, John Walsh's son, was abducted in Florida from a popular mall. There were TV ads and PSAs. It seemed like the abduction of children was happening everywhere. The Gosch family contacts the West Des Moines police immediately. The family waits and waits, and the police do not show up for close to an hour. When they get there, officers explain, which to me is just unbelievable, especially at a time when abduction fear throughout the country is at an all-time high, that their policy dictates that Johnny cannot be classified as a missing person until 72 hours have passed. 3 freaking days. Are you kidding me? They give the family the old, he probably ran away line of BS and tell them they will start looking for him as soon as they can. What I find absolutely appalling about this is that on the front page of the Des Moines Register later that same year is this headline: "A U.S. epidemic of missing kids. Gosch case, 1 of 150,000. According to the article, which was republished everywhere, 50,000 of those kids were abducted by strangers for sexual and/or extortion reasons. Only 10% of the entire lot were found alive and 10% found dead. The remaining kids were never seen again." One of the quotes from Johnny's parents really struck me. Somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning, Noreen, Johnny's mother, says later, the eyeballs pop open, and there we are thinking about our son. That is the agony right there of not knowing. Noreen would go on to say that all the witnesses she spoke to, those boys on the street that morning getting their newspapers, said Johnny was approached by a man driving a blue Ford Fairmont. The guy shut off his engine, Noreen added later, and he opened the passenger door and swung his feet out on the curb right where the boys were assembling their newspapers. And he started talking about, where is 86th Street? As Johnny left to deliver his papers, the driver of the car took off, which was reported to the police by those boys with Johnny that morning. Quote, "The man pulled the door shut and started up the engine. But before he left, he reached up and he flicked the dome light 3 times. Then he pulled out and he left," Noreen claims. She believes that driver was signaling another man, his abduction partner, who later grabbed Johnny off the street. Other boys would go missing from the same general area over the course of the following months and years. According to police, they call in every cop they have at their disposal. Troopers, detectives, reserves, even Polk County sheriffs. They go door to door around the neighborhood trying to find someone who might have seen Johnny. But nobody had. It was too early in the morning. No one was out. And I would add that whoever had abducted Johnny was likely stalking not only him, but the other Paperboys as well, just waiting for the right opportunity. Years go by and Johnny is never heard from again. Beyond a few sightings, which were never confirmed, law enforcement has nothing. No leads, no idea what happened to him, no real suspects to speak of. But then, Johnny's mother, Noreen, says she was awoken in the middle of the night about 15 years after Johnny went missing. Johnny would have been 27 years old at the time. So she goes downstairs and answers what is a knock on the door. There's two men standing there. "It's me, Mom," one of them says. "It's Johnny." She and Johnny hug and begin talking. She knew it was him because, she later says, the eyes don't change. The young man then shows her his birthmark, she claims, which further confirms his identity. "It's me, Mom. It's Johnny." Let's take our only break of the episode. I just want to give the other missing boys' names so as not to overlook them. Eugene Martin, 13, and Mark Allen, 13, both of whom disappeared from residential neighborhoods close by while walking from one place to another. You are listening to Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps Shortcut. I'll be right back. Much of this case has come under scrutiny and has been the subject of consistent controversy. There is a lot of misinformation associated with this case. If it hasn't been confirmed, it's hard to believe, really. One of the more disturbing stories, which has been allegedly proven, is unthinkable. 24 years after Johnny's abduction, 2 photos are dropped off at Noreen and John Gosch's doorstep. By then, the couple had divorced. The photos depict Johnny and 2 other boys bound and gagged. To see the photos is never to unsee them. Johnny is wearing the same sweatpants he left the house in. His mouth is gagged, his feet and hands tied. And the boy looks like Johnny. Why in the hell would someone do this nearly a quarter of a century after the boy's kidnapping? And also, after Johnny allegedly showed up at the family home and spoke to his mother. Law enforcement later confirms the boy in the photo is Johnny, and they claim the photo was taken, though I do not know how they could possibly prove this, hours after he was abducted. The other children in the photos have never been identified. But later, the police retract their belief in the authenticity of the photos and say they have not positively identified the boy as Johnny. It was many years after the photo incident when Noreen went public with the story of Johnny showing up at the house that night, 15 years after he disappeared. She also says that over the years, Johnny had in fact called her several times, only saying, "Mom." When Johnny showed up at the house, according to Noreen, she says he would not tell her where he had been or where he was living. Apparently, he just wanted to prove that he was still alive. "I'm on the run from the people who took me," he allegedly told Noreen during that visit. "I am nervous about being here, and you will be killed if they know I tried to contact you." He went on to tell her that he had been trafficked around the country and made available sexually to businessmen and politicians. That visit, she says, lasted over 2 hours. Johnny left, and she never saw him again. There were reports that Johnny had been taken by a pedophilia ring and used for pornography and other deviant sexual purposes. But again, none of those allegations have been confirmed. Noreen became an advocate for missing children and was able to get the law changed in Iowa regarding response time for child kidnappings and abductions. She has spoken all over about her ordeal and written books, one of which, called Why Johnny Can't Come Home, I have used as a source for this episode. The title stems from his alleged visit to her and their conversations. In 1984, a law passed that required law enforcement to investigate the disappearance of a child immediately, and through that, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children was established. Noreen's main message when she went out and spoke was focused on how organized child abduction rings are. Within just seconds, she says, Johnny was talking to a man and there was a car door slam heard and her son was gone. She also says that when Johnny got to a certain age, his abductors abandoned him because he was of no use to them any longer, but that he was forced to live under an assumed name because they would kill him if he ever tried to come forward. I think the main message from this case and Noreen's dogged advocacy work, which should be admired and respected, is that these child pornography and pedophilia rings are out there, actively abducting children in order to use them as sexual slaves for elite groups, the rich and powerful, and anyone for that matter who can pay. Johnny's photo was one of the first to be placed on a milk carton, a campaign started decades ago to help locate missing kids. The other odd part of this case has a man contacting the family saying he can bring Johnny home, claiming that an outlaw motorcycle gang took him as part of a child sexual slavery ring. The man, Robert Herman Meyer, demanded $11,000 up front, which the family gave him. Then he turned around and wanted an additional $100,000, saying he would return Johnny when he got that money. Meyer was arrested by the FBI and charged with wire fraud. He told the feds Johnny had been sold to a high-level drug dealer in Mexico City, which was why he failed to deliver him to the family. There are so many stories and theories surrounding this case, your head will spin trying to keep track of them all. The bottom line is, Johnny Gosch is still missing. That's it for this Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps shortcut. Be safe, be aware, be alert. Sources for this episode include Child is Missing, Concord Monitor, December 3rd, 1982, Iowa Cold Cases, iowacoldcases.org, Fraud Laid to Man Over Missing Boy, August 16th, 1985, The New York Times. And Noreen's book, Why Johnny Can't Come Home. Crossing the Line is executive produced by M. William Phelps, LLC, and Matthew Valentinus, Mom's Basement Management. Written by me, M. William Phelps. Audio mastering and mixing by Matt Russell. Music by Epidemic Sound. Original music written and performed by Thomas Mooney, Tom Phelps, and Matt Russell.